Easy, how are we?
Shawnee, I'm doing all right, actually.
That's all right. That's all right. How are you doing? All right.
I know you're expecting a bit more. Everyone's
I
telling me it
was.
thinks I'm a bit of a moaner, but no, everything is going okay.
Didn't
I'm
say it out
I'm
loud, but
2 weeks left till I take holidays from here, so I'm in good form.
good, good. How's the training going?
Okay, yeah, it is actually. Yeah, it is going okay. It's getting a little bit easier. I was able to do a 30-minute run there the other day, and my cardiac drift wasn't as bad. I was able to get through 15 to 18 minutes before I went above 140, and then I wasn't slowing down. I was like, no, I'm not slowing down again. I was like, it's supposed to be an easy run. I was like, I don't care this time. I don't care.
So
I'm doing 30 minutes of running.
it's getting cooler. It's getting cool out there in Doha. You've avoided the treadmill. You're running past the shop that has a treadmill in it. You ain't going on it. You're sticking to your
Yeah.
guns.
Yeah, no, sticking to it. And look, it is, again, we're sticking to it. But I think by the end of this month, I rotate out of here on the 27th of September. And then after that, all bets are off. I've done what I said I'd do. I did the whole summer here working and walking and running. And then it's just, okay, whatever's available if the treadmill's easiest. But for the most part, I think I've built up a phenomenal tolerance to the heat. And it's the only reason I've lasted so long. But yeah, really, really good and in good form. And yeah, enjoying the experience.
Nice. It was warm here last week. I went out with the intention to do a sub 450 10K just to be like, 5 minute a 5 minute pace will get me the 330 goal. I'm like, how far am I off that? So I was like, right, I'll go out and do a 3K warm up and I get a 450 pace and then a 1K cool down. But sure, I woke up on the Sunday. I'm like, American football is back. Having people over to watch football. Let's go. I was like, let's try a 10 mile. So I got a 3K warm up in. I tried a 450 and I was holding 445, 440, and I was cruising. I'm like, this is great. And then I looked to watch at one stage. It was like a minute 20 into an hour 20 into the thing. I'm like, I am getting hungry. Do you think I had nutrition? And we recorded a nutrition episode and all like the 2 days beforehand. Do you think I even had my bottle of Lucozade? I was like, I'll just try and hold this for much as I can. And like 14K, I was like, I'll just call it 14. I told no one I'm doing this. And then barely got to 16, was bouncing off the 5 minute kilometer pace. And then for the 1K cool down up a mad hill, I'm like, okay, not the worst in the world. Wish I had done this 2 months ago and seen how I was like for 450 pace closer towards October. I'd probably leave it a little bit too late. I had my adventures and stuff there doing backyard ultras and all the rest. So we'll see how that goes. But like speaking of adventures, that's what this week's episode's all about.
Yeah, as adventures goes, I don't know. This is almost a book. This is as close as you can get to Forrest Gump. But the poor woman's Forrest Gump, for reasons you're going to hear in this story. It is absolutely madness, inspiring, inspirational. There's so much that goes in this with, again, such a modest person and very similar to us in terms of making your mistakes, but being okay with making mistakes. It's about learning about you. It's about learning about the sport. It's about just putting yourself out there for your own development. And it's an absolutely brilliant episode. And we can't if we were to say guess what we're going to talk about in this one and what this guy, you'd never guess in a million years and what's involved. But it's absolutely phenomenal, and it is a story of adventures.
It is absolutely phenomenal. For some reason, as you're talking there, it just reminded me. You called me out on my intro in this one. I thought I did a pretty good intro. I may have messed up a word or not that comes into at the very end of the podcast. So you all want to listen to the challenge at the very end of the podcast. But, cheers for calling me out on that and not just going with the flow for the rest of the episode.
See, you had to do that so now people don't get to laugh at me joke ruining your intro. And on that bombshell, it's time for this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast.
Let's go. So this week on the Any Given Run Day podcast, we have adventure athlete, ultra runner, swimmer, cyclist, and a man that has trekked across the country on a bike, on his feet, both west to east, and very recently south to north while using a pram to carry his camping equipment supplies. Like, it seems like the only thing this man hasn't done is, I don't know, like swim across the coast of Ireland. Daragh Morgan, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. How are you getting on?
I'm great, lads. How are you? Thanks a million for having me on.
Hold on, Sean. How is he going to swim across Ireland?
I said the
Now,
coast.
come on, your intro was doing
I
so
said
well, and then you blew it at the
I
end,
said a
as you
swim
always
around
do.
the coast.
Dara, I
You weren't
apologize for
listening.
my
You weren't listening to fine details. The man said I said the
compadre
coast.
there. Absolute dirtbox. I have more pressing issues. What kind of pram was it? Are we talking sporty pram? Are we
Well,
talking one of these fancy prams?
I'll tell you, I'd love to actually show you it here, but I got it in Lochray in Galway in a charity shop for 20 quid. So that'll tell you exactly what it was. But to be fair, it stood up the whole time, so it must have been a good one. But I got a bargain on it anyway, definitely.
To be fair, what an intro. I suppose a lot of us who listen to the podcast and those of us who have a podcast will still wonder, are we actually runners? And we've described you with a lot of things there: running, cycling, ultras, prams, you name it, you've done it.
Yeah.
Where did this start for you?
This started a number of years ago. It's more of a kind of a personal journey and a fitness journey. So if I rewind it back, way back to, when I was very young, I started off boxing and I just got a love for training and fitness. And I don't know if you've ever done boxing train, like cardio is a massive side of it, and running was really big in it. So that kind of sparked my kind of love for it. And then I kind of, life gets a hold of you, and I kind of went down a different path away from the fitness and into other things that weren't really me, and yeah, I kind of lost that little bit of love and lost that little bit of something, and I actually regained it just by kind of a chance meeting with kind of two friends that kind of showed me kind of a different way of living, I suppose. So that was it.
So from the boxing, what came next when you were getting yourself back into it? What was that meeting, or what was that crossroads that got you there?
So like the boxing, it consumed me, and it was everything for me, and I was military style with training, eating, everything, even at a very young age. Then I went to college, kind of lost the run myself a little bit there.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
The worst of us too.
And I just felt a bit lost, and I just kind of felt I didn't have any real purpose or passion, or I was kind of just, and I was still trying to kind of train, but I was just kind of dragging myself along. And it was only when I got connected with two friends that were actually, believe it or not, one of them was sailing around the coast of Ireland up to Kerry, and I just see
he wasn't sailing across Ireland though, was he?
No, he wasn't.
Wow, good stuff, John.
But he, you know what? It was just a different aspect and a different way of living, and it was like I was in a dark tunnel, and I seen like a bit of light, and I just came out after that, and I was kind of saying to myself, right, well, I kind of want to do an adventure myself. So I got up on my bike and did a big cycle. I think it was from Kerry to Dublin. It was the first kind of big thing I've done, and that kind of ignited a lot in me in terms of, you have to be very fit, and, I struggled a lot on that, but it taught me a lot of lessons. And then after that, then I kind of just kept the head down and started doing more kind of mad stuff, I suppose you could say.
Daragh, you have, I didn't even get to mention the intro, like your sub 3 hour marathons and stuff like that. And in the same times you're done in like the kind of marathon and stuff like that. Your first marathon, am I right in saying that was on a track?
Yeah, my first, and going back to that, it was like my first, I would say, kind of athletic kind of endeavor or adventure, whatever way you want to kind of spin it, was on the track down in Alsa. I was living in Coolock at the time, and I used to train a lot on that track, and I just had it in my mind that I just wanted to do a marathon. And I think this was COVID time, I think it could have been, so there wasn't really anything to sign up for. So I just literally just had a flask of coffee and a few scones, and I literally just ran around that track. It's 105 times or something like that. But yeah, feeling, I was just, yourself when you're running around the track, like, it is mentally tough. So doing a marathon with it, but it was it was kind of one of my first, athletic endeavors.
So on top of the mental side, how did you keep track of the laps? Did you get to like 67 and go, ooh, was that 67? Was that 68? Or did you just have the watch and it's just like, until this says 42, I'm out? Or how did you do that?
Do you know what I had? I don't know if you've ever seen it. In boxing, they have a little clicker.
Yeah. Counter.
And I held it in my hand and I just clicked it every lap.
That would still do my head in. Did I click at that time? Did I forget to click it? I'm not
Did
so
I click
sure.
it? Did I click it twice? Oh.
Yeah.
But I also had my phone on me as well at the time, just recording it, like, you know. But yeah, it was just painstaking at the time.
How was it? How was it? Lap, 30K in, lap 75. How was that?
I just wanted to give in. I wanted to give up. But you come to a certain kind of threshold, and you kind of, I've never felt it because I've never like put myself really, I suppose, in that situation, and I've never tested myself. And then I kind of bypassed this level that I always found that I never thought I could get past, doing this around. And once I kind of broke that, it was a really nice feeling, because it was kind of proving something to yourself, that you can do these things, and you can kind of get past maybe a mental block that you had. So, and that, I'll be honest, like that kind of adventure was, like a marathon was probably the first of kind of a lot of things. And it kind of was like, okay, so what else can I do?
One of those other things you could do, and we're going to get into like all the crazy mad stuff you've done, but you did the track marathon another three times since then.
I've done it to kind of, because it's the first one, I've tried to every October, which is the time I've done it. I tried to do it again, and schedule it in for that. So I moved to Galway about 4 years ago. So I've done, I think it's 4 of them now. So 3 of them in Galway and 1 of them in Dublin. So yeah.
Fool me once, Daragh. Fool me once, but you've gone back 4 times.
Yeah.
The same crack. And is it just to do, or are you beating times? Are you fighting yourself? Is it like the Grand Prix where you're following your own shadow?
Do you know what? It's no times, and it's just the completion of it and the challenge of it. Because I love it, because it kind of sets, it sets something down for the year, or precedent, or whatever it is. But I love it because it was kind of my first, like, true kind of, not coming of age, but first true time that I kind of really tested myself and got over that. And I like coming back to it. Well, like is a kind of a weird expression to it, but it is a challenge that kind of touches on a lot of things that I'm about, and I like coming back to it. And I hopefully in the future I'd love to get more people involved in it and try and make it kind of more of a community-based thing if people want to come on, and because it's a format that you can have your gear on the side. You don't have to go for a really good time. You can have the crack with it, whatever you wanted to do.
For a lot of people listening, the complete opposite of doing a track marathon would be to do the Dublin Marathon. But you did it in October, so this is your final tapering run, and then 2 weeks later you do Dublin, or you do a start of October. And is that how you treat it? Do you even taper?
Yeah. I do taper. But I did that. That was kind of a long run, and now I would, as a rule of thumb, I always say never do the marathon before you do a marathon. But obviously I done that, and I think it was could have been the 1st of October, but I did give myself a good run into Dublin then. Yeah.
No, I'm just baffled. I just don't know how you go from like the crowds of Dublin are coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and experiencing that and doing a marathon, especially the times you have, and you've done sub 3, and then like a couple of weeks before, I'm just going to be alone in my own thoughts with a clicker to make sure I click it. At least you've upgraded the clicker, right? In the last 4 times, you found better ways of doing it.
I've actually done away with the clicker, and even the phone and everything. Just try.
Abacus with 105 buttons on it.
Yeah.
Speaking of technology, I want to switch this up. I do want to talk about the Conor marathon that you did because it's something that we've had a lot of guests on the podcast, and I don't remember people talking about that before. So it could be an interesting one for someone listening to do, especially with wait lists and stuff for Dublin. You did the Conor marathon, I think it was last year. You did it under 3 hours. Phenomenal once again. What was more insane to me, though, looking at your Instagram on it, was once again your equipment. What watch were you using?
It was a stopwatch, like a little kid's stopwatch, basically. Tiny thing, had no nothing, no sophistication, just time. That was it. All it was telling was time.
I saw afterwards you eventually got a Garmin or stuff for the Ironman we'll talk about in a second. But is that something you always did? Just like you just stopwatch, doesn't matter, you just go by feel. Like to run a sub 3 hour marathon is tough. To do it under feel, I'm not too sure. Like that is phenomenal.
Yeah, well, it's all training. You know, I just I never liked running with a watch training. I never liked I kind of knew the routes that I was doing, and then I just kept doing it and it felt really good. And then I'd go into the races, and sometimes, you know, your heart rate would be thrown off by something, or, you know, something would happen, it might die, or, you know, you're worried about it. And I just said to myself, I'm not sure what the first race was that I just kind of left it, and it felt great. It felt amazing, and not having the watch and not having something else to kind of worry about, because I knew, you know, you get your time anyway off the chip, and if anything kind of happened or whatever, if the stopwatch doesn't work. But I actually, believe it or not, I didn't really even look at that watch the whole time. I just kind of really went off feel, and it was only the last, give or take, 10k that I started to just, okay, how am I fixed here? Yeah.
If it's not on Strava, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
So Daragh has only ran one marathon. We're going to pull the podcast here.
It's not on Strava, and loads of people were saying, no, it doesn't count, man. I was like,
doesn't count. I'm going for walks like a bear in the zoo here in the same 1 kilometer, and I track every meter of that thing just so people know I'm not sitting at home all the time. He's going full Bear Grylls with just a button compass and a watch, and off he goes. I'll see you in 3 hours.
But do you know what? It tests yourself as well in a different stage, because I think Strava is brilliant, but it also tests how intrinsically motivated and how do you want it as well for yourself, and it tests like, are you doing it as well for that external, and that's fine as well, but it does kind of confront that as well, which I think is good in a way as well, and it shows the genuine love that you have for it and passion in that way as well. So I'd recommend it.
And it's a good few, like, for those who are listening here, probably thinking running the marathon without their watch, they probably get this feeling in their stomach going, "Ooh," because we've become so used to the technology, to having something on our wrist telling us our heart rate zones, and we know they work. The science behind it, it's all there, and that's why people are doing it. That's why we're getting faster. The shoes are getting better. Everything is there. And even that kind of, I call it the new runner's guilt, where you go for a run, you forget to start your watch, or the GPS didn't count. I've had days where it's really put me off when the GPS, I'd be running in a forest. GPS says I'm running at an 8-minute kilometer when I'm actually running at a 9-minute kilometer. But it's more so that you feel like you're going faster than you are. And then, like you said, you're upset for the race. Whereas if I just went running, I would have felt it out. But it's like I've forgot my wallet and I've gone to the shops. You know, it's that kind of weird feeling.
And look, you know yourself, lads, marathons are tough enough as they are. Now, I definitely think, I'm not saying abandon your watch, but if you find that having that is eliciting all them kind of thoughts and a lot of anxiety, then try training without it. See how you feel, and then that might be the way for you. You know, I always think, look, there's no point to subscribing. What works for me mightn't work for other people. It just works for me. I find this is kind of the way that I do best. But what I will say is it backfired in the Backyard Ultra that I did with Sean, actually. So yeah.
Just to clarify, going any further, this Daragh did whoop me the Backyard Ultra. You finished Hellevation in April, final 4. incredibly hilly course, and I seen some of your reels coming in with Jay Redmond, and he was bombing it along that course as well. Very difficult. I have no idea what happened there after hour 15. I absolutely struggled. How did you find that course on that day?
Do you know what? That was very, very tough. You know yourself, Sean. It was like I think it was a storm on the day of it, and there was tents flying everywhere. And I know one person set a big tent, like a gazebo, and it was literally up in the air. It was flying away. That was the first thing I seen, and I met the lads as well, PJ and Tom, and geez, you couldn't meet nicer people. But I was like, Jesus, I'm in for a tough day here, because they were telling me about the elevation of the course. To be honest, I actually listened to the podcast on it, and then I was kind of to and fro with different events. Would I sign up for it? And I said, geez, sure, look, I'll give it a crack. I've never done one before, and yeah. It's going to regret it.
PJ, the promotion worked. We want 50 quid. You heard it here first.
How did you find?
What about after that? Sorry, John. What about after that then, in terms of the event itself? Obviously, it's a different pace in terms of it's one loop. You're used to doing loops. You said it kind of backfired. You've got elevation involved. You've got to be at the start line. And that's where a lot of the technology can help in terms of timing, pacing, heart rate monitoring, because you're going for days. You're not just going for a 4-hour, 3-hour. It's a long event. So what do you think went wrong for you? And it went right. Well, obviously it went right. You finished fourth. So to say wrong is wrong. But in your own words, you say you blew it.
No, definitely. I think I did. Well, to begin with, I didn't even have a watch in general. So I did, like, the other races I had a stopwatch or something. In this race, I had nothing, and it was
judging off the shadows on the trees. 4 o'clock.
It was brilliant initially, because PJ goes, you don't have a watch, do you? And he was like, oh, my anxiety goes walking off. He was like, fella. So I basically had to stick in a pack to kind of know if I was on time. And there was a few times on the laps I was like, geez, I don't know if I've made it or not, or I don't even know the time. And that was bad, because you're coming in and you don't even know really what time it is, and you might have only 5 minutes. But yeah, I found that course was very tough. Like, there was a lot of sections that were actually not runnable. I would have thought you could, but then the next lap, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So the elevation was very tough on that. And then just, as you go by lap, it just gets harder and harder. So
you had the inverse anxiety this time, where a watch probably would have alleviated a lot of your fears and stresses, especially like when you, in races like that, you get to 3 o'clock in the morning and you're seeing pink elephants and you're wondering what time it is. A watch could definitely keep some sanity involved.
Yeah, exactly. That it would have just, okay, I'm at 40 minutes now, pick up the pace, drop it. I was kind of on my own in the dark with my thoughts. So that was about it.
That was probably the only kind of race in my mind where I wouldn't mind using the stopwatch, because I hit start on the Garmin and I just let it run, because it's like 20 minutes you're at the bottom of this hill, 30 minutes you're at the top, and it's a great way to pace yourself, because you don't care if you're going 6 kilometers an hour on the flat or whatever you're going uphill. It's just hitting certain things at certain times. After doing that, obviously you had other goals in August. You had qualified for the All Ireland. Are you finished with Backyard Ultras? Do you feel like it's a one and done, or do you feel like there's unfinished business there? Will you go back next year?
I probably will go back next year. I don't know is the honest answer. I loved it, but I also I'm kind of unsure. Like, I loved the format and I thought it was good, but when we'll get into it a bit more, I love the kind of adventure side of it and the kind of exploration and kind of different aspects of it. And I found I didn't particularly get that. It was mainly just a massive, like, physical challenge, and you just had to, keep going. But who knows? It could pull me in again. I definitely think the Hellevation was great, and the lads, it's a great event. Everyone there is really, really sound, and it was a good community. So I'll probably do that again, but I don't think I'll go big time into it anyway. Definitely not.
Yeah, it was a miserable day there, but the lads definitely made it. You have done Kerryway, the night one through the night and stuff like that. But the one I want to talk about, because you're very open and honest on your social media, on your triumphs and your failures, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
You went for the run era and across Galway up to Dublin. Let's talk about the first one first, because some people, if they didn't do it, they go social media. If they tried it and didn't complete it, they might just go, okay, I'm deleting Instagram for a couple of months, and then when I do, I'll pop back on and say, "Look what I did."
Yeah.
What happened the first time you attempted across the country?
The first time was an absolute, like, if you think of like failure, this was everything that you could be unprepared for. I did it in, I think it was December, so the weather,
Man.
like a terrible time to do it. You know yourself, like all I had was a running backpack, and I squashed a load of like 2-liter bottles into that, so I filled them up along the way.
Ham sandwiches.
Yeah, ham sandwiches. You change of clothes. I didn't know what I was like. I was just like, okay, I have this go and I want to do it. And I think I think it was just a little bit before Athlone, and I just fuck. It was one of the first times that I kind of just completely packed it in, and I was just like, no. And I just ended up walking back a lot of the way, and it was just like, it was a tough walk back, because your tail's between your legs. I said to myself, like, I'm not shying away from this. Like, I failed, but like, what can I learn from this? And there was definitely great learnings from that, and I think I've taken that kind of true. It's like, don't have the fear to fail, have the courage to try it, and if you do fail, like, a lot of times people can actually really resonate with that, because we all fail at all different things. The person who just is successful in everything, in every aspect, a lot of people can't connect with that.
And a lot of
This is
people with
pretty
the
much
modern day social media, all they see is success. No one shows their failures. No one wants to show their bad side. And I suppose for me personally, I feel like I talk more about the bad side of me than I do the good side here on this podcast. So, but it is that honesty that people resonate with. There's days you get home from work, you feel like crap, and you're supposed to do your long run, and the bar of chocolate slips out, and I failed, and that's it. I'm getting 3 takeaways between now and Monday. And like, everyone has different goals they hold themselves to. But to touch on that as well, so you got to Athlone and then you decided to walk back to Galway.
Yeah. Well,
Is that not the same distance had you just kept walking to Dublin?
Yeah, thinking of that was, Jesus, that's probably not a good idea.
As a punishment, I'm walking back to the start line.
Yeah. I think I wanted to, like, not punish it, but Jesus, it was a tough lesson, but one that I thoroughly needed, I think.
How long is it a case for you? Sean's going to touch on it again in the event. Is it the element of, I suppose, we look back, December, bad time, and again, you seem to have good mental strength. Was it the single sport element? Did you get bored? Were you just miserable? Was it?
It was.
Elements?
It was a massive combination of things. Just the cold actually sapped a lot of energy from my legs, which can happen, And then I didn't. For something like that, you actually needed a support crew or a Pram, as we'll get on later.
This is the key points I was trying to get out of you on this one.
But for something like that, you need people around you, or you need like something, a detailed plan, and I didn't have any of that, and I just knew myself, if I went even any further, I wouldn't get there. So it was just losing. It was a losing battle, and it's very hard to kind of, when you have that kind of want and drive in you, but to pull the plug on things. But sometimes you have to, for yourself and for people around you as well, like. So I think that was one of the main things from that.
on that walk back to Galway, that long lonely road back, was the mind starting to turn of, okay, in June, summertime, this is when I'm gonna go from then. This is the training I need to do. This is the prep I need to do. I need support. Were you thinking that, or were you thinking at the time, the way back, well, fuck this anyway?
Yeah, that's exactly. I said, "Fuck this! What the fuck am I at?" That's exactly what I said, and I was like, I'll just head back to Galway now and just enjoy Christmas, like, you know, and just try not to worry about it too much. But then as the weeks kind of progressed and went by, it kind of just kept etching away at me, and then I kind of put a plan in place then, to do it again, but this time learning from all the major kind of fuck ups, so to speak, at the first one, try and address them and just do it. And once I had that, if I failed again, I tried, you know, my best at it.
Yeah, you set off then again in the summer. You started at 5 o'clock on the Tuesday morning. Did you know where you're going to be at each point? Did you have little mini goals to hit along the way to get back over to Dublin? So how did that work then?
Yeah, see, this is the thing. Even with the first one, I picked the complete wrong route. So there's kind of two ways you can go to Dublin: back roads. You can go up by Monivea, and then you can go down by Lochray and kind of Ballinasloe. The first route was absolutely the worst way possible. I nearly got knocked down a few times because there's just people flying past. So this second time, I got recommended there's a good hard shoulder all the way to Ballinasloe. And then Ballinasloe to Athlone is quite a tricky enough section, but once you get to
not
Athlone,
because of the traffic, just the people. No money.
But from Athlone, then you have a greenway all the way to Mullingar, and then Mullingar, then you have the Royal Canal all the way to Dublin. So that's the kind of way I planned it. It was a lot more of a kind of robust plan, and obviously with the summer, you have a lot more daylight. So, and I had a support crew with a van, and yeah, we'll get into that. That was great crack as well.
I didn't mean to cause offense to anyone from Ballinasloe. I just seen an opportunity to try and be funny. But the what then? So okay, we've mastered support crews. We've moved on from that. You took a stint at triathlon, am I right?
Yeah. I did the hardman, and then I did a few half Ironman, the Metalman, and I forget the other race that I done now. But I took a stint at them because people were saying to me, "Jesus, you're doing mad cycles, you're doing mad swims, you're doing mad runs. Sure, why don't you just combine the three of them?" You know. So I tried it out, and as usual, kind of with a lot of stuff I done, I was kind of unprepared at the start, cycling on what you would call a post bike on my first triathlon. And
I was just going to say, I wanted to ask about the equipment. Did you show up and just flip-flop speedos and goggles and away you went? Or what way does that work? You in the rubber duck at the start line and all the lads in the speedo swimsuits.
That was it. My first, I think it was triathlon, was pretty much like that. So like that, I'm always kind of learning on the job, I suppose. And the more I do them, the more, you know, that I knew, you know, you needed the bike, because I was a good swimmer coming out in good time on the swim, and everyone passed me out on the bike, and I was like, what is happening here? But obviously it's the equipment, you know.
I know you were talking about triathlons. You touched on mad cycles, you touched on mad runs, we touched on the podcast. You kind of brushed over mad swims. For me, a mad swim would be to do an Ironman at 3.8k. I think it's bananas out in the water. But you don't spend an hour or two in the water. You spend 3 hours, 4 hours in the water. You do mad 10, 13k events. As someone who has no idea about swimming and can barely go 10 meters, how do you get in the water for 3, 4 hours, however long you're going for, without running out of energy and that being that?
Yeah, it like you can feed from the boat. So like some of the swims I've done, one of the like biggest ones that I've done initially was around Howth Head, which is actually a very challenging swim because there's a lot of currents around the Bailey Lighthouse, but we took that one now, took a lot of planning, very detailed, because you need that. But on the boat, then you can get people to throw you out food or liquid carbs, things like that. Now, a lot of times I wouldn't have too much. I'd fuel a lot the night before, and that seems to work for me for them bigger swims. And then just kind of have maybe bananas or like things like that's not going to upset your stomach too much, or take on too much.
So what brought on, have you been swimming since a young age, or was this just something you picked up in your teenage years? And is it just a case of now I look at Howth Head and go, I can swim around that, and let's just assemble the Avengers and go for it? What way does this work for you, or what way do you set your challenges?
Do you know what? And I think it goes back to the watch thing we were talking about. And swimming just gave me this sense of kind of the ultimate almost freedom. Running gives you that, but you still have your watch, you still have your phone. When I was in the water, when I was in the sea, I just kind of, there's a certain level of you're just out there, and it's almost like a moving meditation, when you're in nature and in the sea. And I fell in love with it then. And I swam when I was younger. I did a bit of lifeguarding, so I'd have a good base. But when I was living in Dublin and Coolock, I used to cycle to Sea Point almost every day, catch the tide, and just keep swimming like that. And then when I built up kind of a certain, I don't know how you'd call it, a certain amount of mileage that I kind of had, I started to look at other things, and Howth Head was actually directly across from Sea Point. And I thought to myself, Jesus, I'd love to swim around that. I don't know, has anyone even done it? So I started asking around, and I started asking fishermen and people in Howth, and they said, I think one or two people, but I can't remember the last person who done it. But then I rang up this guy who's mad enough to kind of take me on as a support boat. And I said, look, I'll give you 300 quid if you'll do this for me. And he said, yeah, no. He was delighted then. So I got a few of the lads on the boat, and I just went for it one morning. And do you know what? It was amazing to do that. And that is still something that sticks out for me. Very hard now, but something that sticks out for me, really, really special.
Any point in that swim when the currents get difficult around the lighthouse that you were like, this is a big mistake? Or how do you keep your cool in them situations? How do you preserve energy? How do you plan for something that's really unknown to you? Let's be honest. You didn't know about the current. Maybe you'd heard a story, but you didn't know till you're there, and you're like, I'm 3 hours in, I'm pretty tired, and this is pretty hard. What do you do in them situations? Because for me, that's terrifying. There's sea monsters. There's if I stop swimming, next stop I'll end up in Australia because the tide's going to take me. There's all these kind of things that'll go through my head. How do you keep your cool doing these kind of things?
So what it was like a treadmill going around the Bailey, and I couldn't get past it. So I had to kind of adapt, and it's having people as well around you at them times that kind of know what they're doing. Like, so the fisherman knew the currents, and he said to me to go in further towards the rocks. Now I was shitting. I was like, you want me to go right by the cliff? Like, I was looking up at the Bailey Lighthouse, and I'm close to this, and you want me to go even further? Oh, okay. And it's just placing your trust in that, and also trusting yourself. Right, I've done the training. I know I'm fit. I know I've put myself in different situations. Right, this is a test. Can I get through it? And I just put my head down, and little by little, inch by inch, I just kind of eked my way out of that. I don't know what it was. I think it was a rip or a current. And after I came out of that, then it was a beautiful swim then after that. And it kind of goes back to the marathon as well. There's always going to be in them challenges that kind of testing moment, and kind of just breaking through that and then getting out to the other side.
Is your mind constantly thinking, what's the next challenge and what's the next challenge? Like, you did the the track marking, you've seen Howth Head, going around that. You did the run air across, and then we'll get into it now in a minute, going from Mizen to Malin using the pram, which we found out now. One of my questions already is, why did you use a pram to do that? But now it makes a lot more sense to me. Are you constantly thinking about the next big thing, the next big challenge?
Do you know, it kind of happens that way, and I try not. I try kind of not to, because I know there's a kind of loop you can get into, and it's just like trying to outdo yourself all the time. I do find, though, in a way, these things, they really have added to my life, and they've been so amazing. I've met some great people along the way, and they've been fully authentic to who I am and what I'm about, and it's just what I love. So and it just so happened that sometimes, like, you do want to do, okay, the next thing, but I don't heavily plan them out, or, I don't really know what I'm going to do next. And then, but I know one thing that's constant always: I'm always training. I'm always keeping myself right, because I know there might be something that'll pop up. But I just know myself. I love training. I'm obsessed with training. I love running. I love swimming. I love being out in nature. And that's the core essence of everything. If I can do that, and then these other things are they're basically kind of byproducts of the love that I have for training and exercise, and just express myself in that way.
I'd be afraid to bring you for a drive, because I'd have to put a blindfold on you. You see a pram, you see a sign to Cork, and then you're like, oh, I have it. I know what's coming next. Like,
The next
what? Yeah. Okay, look, Mizen to Malin, we all know, is a regular route and has been done and attempted, and records are always being set on it. Talk us through what led you to that one. Did you go for a drive and see a sign for Cork, and that was it?
Do you know, it was actually, believe it or not, it was when I was doing the Galway to Dublin run, which, to be honest with you, if I'm looking back, it was a very, very tough run, because it was 36 hours, no sleep, just a constant. And like halfway through, I just, like the swimming, just came a certain point. I was like, oh, I don't think I can get through this. And it was my knee that was kind of playing up on me, and that I never had too much issues with that. But it was
last
after.
one you'll run through Ballina slow. That's slow anyway.
But I shouldn't say this, because I'm actually very close to Ballina. But it was actually when I finished, one of my old boxing coaches, and just a great guy overall, like Daragh Ahern's his name. But he said to me, okay, Mizen to Malin is next, And I didn't really think that of it, but it must have planted some sort of seed in me. And I kind of left it go. I didn't really have any plans to do any kind of mad runs or anything this year. I actually more so wanted to do bigger swims, a swim from the Aran Isles into Galway. I was planning to do that. But it just so happened that a lot of these things that I had planned just kept falling through, and logistically it just wasn't working at all. And I wanted to do something that would just kind of take me away for a couple of days, and a longer form adventure to kind of test myself in all different aspects. So this kind of popped up, and I was listening to, I forget the podcast.
This kind of popped up. A holiday in Vietnam for 2 weeks just pops up.
Yeah.
Buying a pram and running the length of Ireland isn't something that just pops up.
Well, to be honest, this was basically my holiday in Vietnam, if I'll be honest. This was my, heading off for a few days. But yeah, that, and I don't know what I was listening to a podcast anyway, and there was a guy who ran across America with a pram. I don't know if you ever heard of this guy. I forget his name.
Sounds like a really bad podcast, whatever it is.
But I was just kind of fascinated by it. I was like, Jesus, how would you fucking run across with a pram? And I was kind of looking into it a lot more. And just as I was the wheels were turning, passed by that charity shop. There's a pram outside of the charity shop. And I don't know, something in me I stopped, had a look at it. It was 20 quid. I said, geez, that's a bargain. Went in, bought it. But I kind of tried it out. You know, people trying out runners.
As a wheel. Yeah.
Had a little run
Any
with
spare
it.
wheels?
Yeah. Had a little run up and down Lochray with it. Then went into the woman. She thought I was fucking mad, I'd say. I was telling her what I was thinking of doing with it. And she said, oh yeah, best of luck with that. And then put it into the back of the van and kind of left it for a while and then started training with it. And then once I started training with it, I kind of said, right, I have the pram, I have the training in. I'm going to have to do it now.
So
I saw the videos. You're on the track.
Yeah.
When you say training with it now, like, is it literally people walking by and like, there's
You're
Daragh
pushing a
on lap
pram.
60 pushing the tram along the pram along the track, like he's preparing for fatherhood. What's going on here?
Well, everyone in Galway was stopping me because a lot of people would know me around Galway and they were saying, geez, I didn't know you had.
No wonder
No.
I didn't know you for the bloke who's pushing baby wee wee around the track for 60 laps. No,
It won't fall asleep.
I was actually given out by one woman. She said, geez, you're flying up and down the curbs on that pram, the poor baby and all this. I said, I had and she kind of was backing off then when I explained to her what I was thinking of doing.
I'd say you're backing off with one hand in the phone ringing 999.
So you went. So with the pram, this, unlike your run era one across the country, this one was completely self-sufficient. You had the camping equipment and all in it. One of your posts, you said you hoped to do it in 12 days. So I'm assuming you had different points you wanted to hit for camping, or I saw a text in the Hellevation group here. You know, Dara's near here. Anyone around to take him in tonight or anything like that? Like, how did you set it out, or was it just like, let's run certain amount and see where I can stay?
So this was actually kind of learning from my previous. This was detailed and planned out as well. So I had kind of locations along the way and then also the roads. So if it was and I had all that in an Excel file which I kind of printed out and I had it with me, so all the locations all along the way and then an end location for each day that I had kind of mapped out. But what was kind of left up to me was to find a camping spot once I got to that said location. So say for example the first day I had the end location was Bantry, but I did that in really good time, got through that. So I said, look, I'll just keep pushing on. I ended up doing, I think it was 71k the first day, and then camped out at a place called, I always butcher the name, and a lot of people were giving out to me about butchering it from Cork, but I think it's Gogan Barra, it's called. A lot of people get married around there, but I camped out there that night, and then that kind of brought me a little bit closer, so I had to kind of just change a little bit of things around on the plan, and then it was just get to the next kind of waypoint. So I chunked it down into day by day, and then by day my kind of waypoints were villages and towns along the way that I could stop into.
What's it like waking up at day 2 of the wedding and then packing your pram and then running the rest of the country? And when you're going over these kind of terrains and stuff, like, how did you find it? Was there a point you're just walking for hours? You know, do you even bother running? Even that day, that first day, one thing that jumped out to me is pushing on the extra 30k. We've had other guests talking about it. Were you a little bit afraid? Am I pushing too hard? Will I blow up a little bit early? Or was it just, I feel good, let's just keep going?
Yeah, there was definitely that bit in me. I was like, Jesus, you know, are you going too far? But it was the same. You're kind of forced to do that as well. If you pass a town that you said that you'd camp at, you're on roads that, like, you know, you're going into private fields and stuff like that, and you can't really do that, you know. So I had to get to a place where I knew I could camp safely. So I kind of kept going, and then I was like, sure, I'll keep going. And then once you're in that kind of space, you kind of have to keep going to the most suitable camping spot. So I would ideally like to stop a little bit sooner, but I had to find a good camping spot, and I knew that sleep was probably the most important thing on the whole journey for recovery. So I needed a good place. So that extra maybe 5, 6, 10K, it actually did benefit me in the end, but it could have definitely went against me. But I kind of took sleep as a number one priority and precedent.
After your sleep, you're getting up, nutrition, breakfast. What is the go to there? Like, did you have that set routine every morning before you hit the road, or?
Yeah, I had a set routine kind of, and it became down to a T almost. I'd pack up everything and I'd do the first run fasted. So that'd be about 15K, get into the next town, fuel up. I had a lot of my own stuff that I had with me. So like flapjacks and bread that I'd made and a lot of like whole foods. I kind of burned through that quite quickly. So then I started getting onto the carveries and the, just whatever I could along the way. But yeah, I just them stops where God's like I'd stop, have a cup of tea, have a pot of tea, fuel up, and just kind of settle myself, and then on again. And that was just the whole day. To be honest with you, it was lovely because my whole day was literally I just had to get to this end location. There was nothing else that I needed to do. So it was a very simple kind of existence and a way of living, and I met some amazing well along the way.
You're tracking it every day on the Instagram. It was absolutely class and look at, and like when we touched on the Hellevation, and that weekend was leading up to it was the All Ireland up north for that, and like for the first couple of hours, like most people just thought, now, do you see Daragh Morgan's Instagram, him on the Pram, and like heading out, because a lot of the boys would have known you from the Hellevation, and they were talking to others about it, and like I think you passed there at one stage as well. You put a picture in the group, like it was just. Yeah. Like, for the first few hours, all talk was just about this class thing you're doing. It took time off the loops for us going around just doing that. It was phenomenal what you're doing. Was there any point during it where you were like, made a mistake here? This is a bit of a struggle. Was there any big struggle points like you had during the other runs?
Do you know what? I think it was either day. So I got into, I don't know if you remember, I was talking about camping in, I think Nina, it was, and I asked PJ or Tom, because they're close enough to there, and they said, "Geez, I wouldn't camp in Nina anyway." Sorry about Nina.
Nina, abandon slow. We're just gonna block those two from the podcast.
That's it. We're goosed. Our listenership's gone down by 1,000. They're a hotspot.
People here to say, but I went this. I think it was like an extra 7K, but it was one of the worst roads that I ran on the whole time, and it was just a complete struggle the whole way, because that day was particularly hard, just with the hills going into Nina was very tough. And then didn't I actually end up going to this place called Ashley Park House? I don't know. I seem to be attracted to this was a wedding venue as well, and it was and it was fully private. It was booked out. And I didn't know. So there was a wedding next door to me. So I was camping and I had to hide basically while camping while this big wedding is going on. And I barely got any sleep the whole night. Fucking music blast and then people falling out drunk. And I was then afraid that they're going to discover me and throw me out or do whatever. So it was a night of terrible sleep, which is one
Sounds like Electric Picnic.
Yeah. And that night was just terrible sleep. And then the next day I ended up like my left Achilles was killing me. And I think it was just because I didn't get that full recovery that I had in the previous days. And also obviously I was averaging about 60K a day, so your body is going to, at some stage, it's going to be like, what are you at here? And all I was saying to myself was adaptation. Your body is it's gonna scream, geez, what are you doing here, and try and get you. But at a certain level, your body and your mind and everything kind of starts to adapt to what you're doing. And that was the hope. The hope the fear was that it just didn't adapt. But I was just thinking all the time, just adapt to this. And this is what we're doing. And I was kind of like talking to myself, this is what we're doing now. This is what I need you to do. And thankfully, it listened.
Did
How
those adaptations
miserable.
happen over the
I've one
Sorry.
silly question before Sean's good question. How miserable is it packing up a tent every morning when you're that tired?
You know, some days it was tough, but to be honest, and this is like it kind of combined a lot. I actually really like camping. I love going out. I love going out on, like, you know, little camping adventures and stuff like that. So it wasn't. It was
In
like
wedding venues, you forgot to leave out the key part. Who's your man in the corner? It's just Daragh and his pram.
yeah, I prefer better venues than that, but in general, I actually really like that and really enjoy that. So it wasn't a massive chore for me, and I actually, in a weird way, when I got better sleeps in my, and I might come on to this, but a woman put me up in her house, and it was amazing. But I was getting better sleeps in my tent for, I don't know why, some reason, and then I was put up in a hotel in, what was the name of it? Irvinstown. But that was a mad one as well, because they were all singing. There was some function on, and they were all singing downstairs, and I couldn't get sleep at all. So I think it was a reoccurring theme, like sessions beside me or whatever it was.
Yeah. When you're getting your second, was it like, I've done long runs where it's like I pray for a second wind and I might get a second wind, maybe a third wind throughout the day. But because I know it, I have the end point in mind, or it's certain timing with that, where you've got days and days, were you just getting like a bad day with that Achilles and you knew you have to keep going till you step that night, and then, you know, hopefully you, I can't even going to say this, but hopefully you were sleeping outside and not in a hotel where you got better sleep, that the next day you got like the Achilles injury it didn't feel as bad in your mind and off you went again? Or were you getting your ups and downs throughout the day?
I was worried about it because I'd be quite in tune, and I didn't, like, I could feel pain and I can go through pain, but this was like a certain level of, I remember at one stage it was so bad I had to take off what I thought was, because, you know, the road, sometimes I was running all on the left hand side of the road, and it was my left Achilles that was at me. So I thought, okay, it's the slope. So I tried to run on the other side of the road, and that made things even worse. And I was kind of thinking, Jesus, what? So it actually got so bad. I think like 2K outside of Cloughan was the last location in Offaly that it was the first time I actually ran the majority of it, but this was the first day that I had to walk. And I just thought to myself, I was like, okay, if I have to walk it, I'll walk it, but I really don't want to walk it, because it's different to run it. You know yourself, lads, walking it is fucking long, and I was like, I want to run it, like, I don't want to walk it. But if it has to be, then it'll be. But that's what was worrying me. I knew I'd do it, no doubt, but the case of walking it was like getting to me a little bit. Yeah,
I don't think I could walk a marathon. I've done a good few marathons run. I don't think I could walk it. The idea of starting and going right 8 hours later or 7 hours, whatever it is, just walking that without the option to run, like those that finish it walking, I genuinely have respect for them. When you were doing your daily updates and stuff like that, and the Achilles injury, did that ever play with your mind, being like, I'm after putting myself out there again? You know, I'm giving updates every day, and all of a sudden this Achilles coming in. Did that kind of, not outside, not noise, but just that extra, was that pressure at all to you doing that when you constantly have those updates online?
no, not really, actually. Do you know, like, putting it? But what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to give it voice. So a lot of people said to me, "Oh, geez, you never said anything about it," and I was like, "Yeah," because I didn't even want to talk about it or put anything out there about it. I was just kind of, no, it's going to be okay tomorrow. And I was just thinking positive, and I didn't even want to put it out there, kind of almost into the ether, or whatever you want to call it. I just didn't want to give it attention, so I kind of ignored it. And yeah, I didn't really feel that pressure, because I was like to myself, gee, like, I've got this far, I'm doing well, and I'm not doing, like, there wasn't loads of external pressure. I wasn't doing it for charity. It was more just a personal adventure and just something for myself. And I thought to myself, look, if this is the way it has to be, then so be it. But I kind of knew within my mind and within everything that I'd get there. And that particular day in Cloughan, believe it or not, I met this woman and a little boy called Harry, a really nice kind of family, and they took me in. They made me dinner. She insisted to wash my clothes, and I said, "You do not want to wash these. These are like, I'm going to burn these instead of washing them." But she said, "No, I insist." And the little guy was like running around with my pram, and he was yeah, and he was loving it, and he was like, "Oh, you're camping and all this." But then he picked up like a dandelion, and that time of the year, the ones with the, when you blow them and Ginny Joes. There's very few of them that time of the year, but he picked it up anyway and he blew it, and he just said, "I hope you get there in 11 days. And just something small like that, just like when I was feeling kind of, I don't know if I'm going to do this or not, that just gave me a massive lift in a way, And I think, like, we talk about this as a solo adventure. It wasn't at all, because there was people in Cork who took me into their house and gave me a fry, and was chatting to me. And every time I came out one of them interactions, it was like I got a new lease of life and a new bit of energy. And yeah, I could kind of frame it as it's a solo adventure, and I don't know. Not at all. It was the kindness of people along the way that got me through. If I was just doing this head down and didn't talk to anyone, I honestly believe I wouldn't have done it. So it was such a powerful kind of realization in terms of that the kindness, that just small little acts of kindness can go a whole way, and they can actually fuel someone to do something like that. Amazing. So trying to kind of do that myself, and I suppose that is at its essence why I kind of do them things. You see the best in people, and I know myself, if I seen someone like cycling with mad stuff on the back of the bike, I'd ask them what are they doing, and try and help them, or whatever that is, to kind of give back in that way. So yeah.
On that last day when you finally got to the Malin Head, just turn around and walk back again, yeah?
That's what
did you have some?
They were like, "Oh, sure, you're going back now, are you?"
Did you have people there
like
at the end, or was it just did you just hit a point that? What was that like?
Do you know what? It was a combination of things. Now, I don't know if you've seen, I was hitting holy wells along the way as well. So this is it. I know it's a bit off topic, but I was very interested. There's a book I was reading on it, so I was doing a lot of research around the holy wells, and you know what? I met some amazing people, and it's kind of a deep history of Ireland that we've lost. All these wells had like cures and different things like that. Very, very interesting, and I met some amazing people, particularly older people praying at them, and different kind of sites. But there was a last one that I wanted to go to, is called Malin Well, and I took the kind of wrong road, couldn't find the well. It was a bit like, I was really excited to find this, and there was a lot of history around that. And in the book I was reading, there was a lot of like detail on that, and I couldn't find it. So that kind of got to me a little bit, and I was like, look, we'll just get to the end destination. I was so concerned about my left leg that my right leg then started really giving me issues. So that the last kind of 3 or 4K was really, really tough. And yourself, like the hills in Donegal are unforgiving, So it was a big climb, like up to Malin, and I was struggling big time. But once I got there, there was just such a sense of, I don't know, just joy, because the whole thing itself, although I go through, geez, my Achilles is really bad, but like I was saying, the people that I met and everything along the way, it was one of the most amazing things I've done, and it was really tough, but it was also so enjoyable. And once I got there, I was like, what an adventure, what a journey that had been, And I just took 15 minutes just did a bit of meditation, which I actually done every day throughout the journey, which was a godsend because it just calmed everything down, you know. And I did that, just reflected on it, and had a cup of tea with my mum at the end, and that was really special, you know.
And it is a magical moment for all those who have done it, because you don't realize how long something is. And, you know, you look at something on a map, but until you take those first steps or the first push of the pedal, you realize this is a very long way. This is what the big achievement. And you don't realize it until you get there. And no different to anyone who finishes a marathon for the first time, or, you know, their big achievement, that emotive feeling. Did you have a big crowd there? Was it just your family? Was it just an intimate moment?
It was just my mum. No one else, and a load of Scottish tourists that were asking what is he doing with a pram, like, you know, a few onlookers like that. But yeah, it was just me and my mum, and you know what, it was a beautiful moment to just share with her, you know. So yeah, look, it's great to have loads of people there, but I you know, the feeling of that I had there, I wouldn't trade it for the world, and it's great to share that with someone so close to me as well, you know.
Those kind of moments are what make it so special as well, and it's sharing it with people. And I think that's one thing we forget when we all sign up for the Dublin Marathon each year. And we've had a couple of guests saying, you know what, I do it with my family now, or it's an excuse. Like the marathon, for me and Sean, it's the excuse to get the parents into town for the day. It's the excuse. When I got to Malin Head, the only person I rang was my mum. Send Sean a middle finger probably, but the only person I rang was my mum. And it is when you cross that, I don't know what it is about those magical moments. It does make you take stock of the people that you do, not that you do it for, but that you're like, I'm after achieving all of this. Probably couldn't have done this without all of the other things you've done for me over the years, and my way of saying thanks, you know. And it's something, I suppose, in sport and with all you do, to have that magical moment is something we all should take out of it, that we all should just be in the moment and remember those who helped us get there.
Yeah, and it brings you closer to them, and that's probably one of the big takeaways from, you know, at any level, marathon, whatever that is, you know. If it's bringing you closer to the people you love, it's a magical thing, you know. Really, really good, and that's really positive.
Well, I mean, Daragh, you're used to a finish line after 105 loops doing the exact same thing again. So the fact you had your mouth when it was a huge upgrade to what you normally do to your runs. But before we ask what is next, you kind of brushed over something there. That the start of that story was you make your own bread.
Yeah.
That's all you got out of that.
No,
that's all you got.
There's more. No,
there has to be something more to this.
You jumped the gun. Like there is more to that, right?
Yeah. So I make my own porridge bread, oat bread, and oat scones, and I've started to kind of supply a few places around Galway. And to be honest, it's a real kind of passion for me, baking, and it's helped me a lot on my adventures, and cooking as well is a big part of my life. So I just kind of wanted to, I don't know, share something that has helped me. So yeah, it's a project that I'm really excited to kind of get into more. And I recently just did a lot of research into it with continuous glucose monitors in terms of, you know, oats and the bread itself compared to other kind of products. And it's really interesting, the kind of glucose response. As we know, like, oats are a long-lasting energy source, so which is great for long endurance events. And I kind of tested it out almost on myself as a guinea pig, so I was having that a lot along the way. So oat-based products, yeah, was what really helped me. So.
And do you deliver them with the pram?
With
I can see I'm something up there.
Yeah. Oh, geez, yeah. I could put them in the pram, yeah, for an extra cost or something.
I know the marketing stunt that you have here now. You'll be running around Galway now for the next 10 years selling out buns.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And for those who don't know, if you have any links to any of them, we will share them. And we won't share the recipe because that's giving the game away, but we will share out all the good things that you do. Daragh, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on. It's been great to have a laugh with you and talk so lightheartedly about some really good things that you're doing. And I've no doubt what's next is going to come. Have you anything to say about or a hint of anything? And we don't want to put you under pressure, but is there anything next on the horizon for you?
No, so I was saying it to Sean, like, and obviously I'm kind of saying, look, you don't want to get caught into that loop. But the big thing for me is, and I've planned this for, actually, I was planning to do it this summer, just logistically, as I was saying, it didn't work out, it didn't happen. But look, swimming for me is a massive thing, and the long distance swimming. And now that I've, them multi-day kind of adventure over the line, I actually thoroughly enjoyed that. But this is going to be something a lot bigger that requires a lot more logistics and things like that. But it's and I'm not afraid to put it out there, because as with the run across, attempted run across Ireland, you fall on your face, you learn a lot of lessons as well. So my kind of big goal for next year, starting off in May, is to swim the coast of Ireland, so around Ireland. It would take approximately 4 to 5 months. So finishing up kind of in around this time, September of 2025. So yeah, the plans are in place, the logistics, everything is kind of on its way now to kind of do that. And that is what's next for me. And to be honest with you, that has been driving me for a good few years, kind of on the underlay of a lot of other things. And I think all these adventures that I have done and just kind of will just add to that. And, when times are getting tough, and I know, I'll kind of reach back into that cookie jar, so to speak.
Well, what a question to finish on, because it's like a cliffhanger of a season. You're going to have to, you've heard Pram 1, wait until you hear about Pram 2. And
underwater.
Underwater. It was a different Pram. It was a different movie. But look, I have so many questions, Sean. You better wrap this up quick.
I'll wrap it up by saying one thing. You talked about that in the when we're going back and forth in DMs. Yeah. Genuinely, Eric's gonna call me out, and I was being wrong on this. I got to the last sentence about swimming around the country. I was like, "No, that's just insane. That's I was like, across coast, across. That is bananas." And we've said this to other guests, but absolutely for you, there will be a part 2, and we can't wait to hear it and see your Instagram. We'll have a tag in the stories. How you get on that, Daragh? You're a fucking inspiration. You're absolutely phenomenal. And it's been fantastic having you on the show.
No, lads, I'd like to say the same. Like, you're doing amazing things and allowing others to kind of share their stories that mightn't get the opportunity on other platforms. So, look, just thanks a million, and keep up the great work yourselves as well. So.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Any Given Day podcast with myself, Daragh, and Eric. Take care.